Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I'm your host. My name is Karolina, and I am the Connection Catalyst. I help spiritual entrepreneurs experience deeper connection with themselves, with others, and with the universe. Today on the show, we have Kevin Orosz, the relationship mentor. Welcome to the show, Kevin. How are you doing?
Grateful to be here, Karolina. Thanks for having me.
I am super grateful as well, because today we're going to talk about exciting stuff, which is dating. And I don't think we've been talking about dating much on this podcast. So I'm just so excited to talk to you. But I would love to start with a little bit of your story. How did you become the relationship mentor, and what has led you to this path of helping people with the relationships? Was it something that personally happened to you, or was it something that you just got inspired by? I'm super curious if you don't mind sharing.
Totally. I mean, it's definitely something that has found me. I did not set out to do this. It's just been a big part of my journey. And only recently, actually, have I gone all in on coaching on just this, because I've been doing a lot of different things, working with entrepreneurs, working with yoga and breath work, facilitating retreats, public speaking, a lot of men's work. But this has been what the people want. So who am I to, deny them? It's definitely been a personal journey. I was raised Catholic from Texas in the US, and, quite conservative upbringing, very shy as a boy, kind of didn't feel very at home in the, normal, setup of school into university. I fell in love with a girl, and when I was in university, and thought she was going to be my wife, and was in this very naive kind of codependent mode, and found out she cheated on me at the time, which was just a huge death blow to my identity then, because I just had no concept of sovereignty, or, did not understand frame or masculine power, and was completely blindsided by this, although all the signs were there. That kind of sent me into a depression, into insomnia, anxiety, and it just led to one thing after another of me going on the path of, the inner journey of like, what the fuck is wrong with me, and how did this happen? And basically that led me into philosophy, that led me into yoga, that led me into psychology. And I was pursuing my PhD. So I was going to apply to grad school and do a PhD in psychology. And that just didn't feel aligned for me. So I ended up eventually quitting my job, selling everything, and starting to travel the world, basically. I went through India, went through Southeast Asia, started writing a blog, started understanding yoga, and got certified as a yoga teacher. Then I started personal training. Then I found coaching, started doing retreats, and then, kind of the rest is history. I really started doing that full time about 8 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I love meeting fellow travelers, on the podcast, because I've been also traveling hardcore a lot during the last, 10 years or so. And I know how it feels to just like leave everything behind and just start from scratch, rebuild yourself just with blank page, really blank canvas, and you can paint anything and be whoever you want to be. I just love this feeling so much. So when you're talking about it, I'm just really feeling into it. And it's just amazing how sometimes traveling and opening up to new cultures, new people, new experiences can just unlock something within us that we didn't even know is possible. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really, really great. And it's so interesting that it always starts from us, right? When we go through something, when we go through a heartbreak, or we are codependent, then we are unlocking the potential, unlocking ourselves, and becoming more authentic and more centered, I guess, when it comes to codependent pattern. Because I also am a codependent, and when it comes to, the abandonment wound and so on, I'm working through the same things. And I realized that it's just when we are projecting our energy outwards, we don't even realize how we are focusing outwards as a codependent, and we can actually bring everything inwards. And all these projections, our energy that goes out to other people, to this one person, to this partner, or to our friends, whoever it is, we can actually just gather it all in again and become more whole within. And that's what I've been working through as well during the last 2 or 3 months as well, to just go deeper and deeper into myself, and not rely on my external conditions and my friends or family or partner or whoever is around me. So it's amazing that you have been also working through it, and now you're probably helping people also get rid of all these codependent patterns. And so having said that, I'm curious to know your perspective as someone who has, reprogrammed the codependency. What would you think is the most important thing to know for someone with, let's say, anxious attachment style, because these people are usually codependent, right? The anxious attachment style. What is the most important thing that these people need to know?
Yeah, I mean, it's, in a word, it's self-awareness. In practice, it looks like, getting support, whether that's a men or women's circle, whether that's a psychologist, a coach, a therapist, whatever, whether that's exploring yourself, right? Like through traveling, through art or creativity, through shadow work, what have you. If you have self-awareness and you understand how you were raised, so you look at your mother and father, what were their attachment styles, how did they form, a relationship, what were the agreements of that? Were their nervous systems regulated? Did they even have language around this stuff? Once you start digging in a little bit, you'll quickly reveal like, oh, this is my pattern, right? And, if you're more of an anxious attached person, or if you become, codependent, so when you meet, a woman or a man, you just stop hanging out with your friends, or you become kind of obsessed, you have to be aware of these things and check them, right? Codependency can't form in a healthy village or community. So that's the other thing, is like when you isolate yourself with your partner, it's going to be a recipe for, some of that entanglement and, stress that could form and actually destroy the relationship if it's not checked.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I feel like there are also levels of codependency, right? Because like the extreme level is when you just shut off the whole world and you just entangled with the partner. But also what I found for myself is that I can just easily really fall into someone and just go so deep and just become really into them. And then my energy just goes out and out and out. And it's not extreme. Like I don't really separate myself from the world, but still even seeing that I just put my energy into someone else rather than just focusing on me also changes a lot, right? Because we are actually more magnetic and we are actually more attractive when we focus energy into ourselves and focus on what we are really meant here to do and our mission and our self-love, right? And then we become actually attractive to the world. So it's just really really nice that we are talking about it, because I feel like a lot of people have this pattern, and it's just important. It's a very important topic. And that brings me to our second theme, which is conscious dating, and also the difference between when we are aware and when we are conscious of ourselves, and let's say regular dating. Because I found that sometimes when I listen to what people say about dating, I don't really resonate with some of the tips that people give. And so I'm really curious about your perspective and your tips also for bringing awareness to the dating scene, let's say, because you probably worked with a lot of people and you have a lot of experience with what people struggle with. And so what is your biggest advice, let's say, for people who want to bring more awareness into that, and maybe also some tips for men, but also generally for people. But I guess you know more about men because you're a man yourself, but you probably had a lot of women as well sharing their perspectives with you. So I'm really curious about your opinion on that.
Totally. The difference between, again, conscious dating and unconscious dating is just the level of awareness and insight you bring into it. So that, to me, the number one thing to be aware of is just, what do you want? And being fully radically honest with that from the beginning. This is what causes the most issues when, you go to a party or a club or a bar, you're on a dating app, whatever, and you meet someone. Games and you want a committed, deep partnership, but you're pretending that you're okay with just casual sex or a situationship, you're setting yourself up for, and the other person, for a lot of stress and failure and, probably drama. So just be upfront from the beginning and be honest. And to do that, you got to learn how to communicate your desires, your boundaries, have a conversation about consent, have a conversation about expectations from the beginning, and you don't have to do this in a boring, heavy way. You can do this in a flirty, sexy way, but you need to have that conversation. That's the number one thing I see most people just completely miss, or, they don't know how to have that conversation. The other thing is really around the polarity and, it depends on where you fall on masculine and feminine. Everyone's got their own, style or energetic. But, if you're a man, pick a time, pick a place, and pick her up and pay for dinner or whatever it is. Like, just own that. And so many people, fight this nowadays, but after talking to hundreds of women and working with dozens of women over the years, this is the most commonly desired and craved for thing, right? And likewise, if you're a woman and you're more in your feminine, allow yourself to surrender and allow the man to lead. It doesn't mean if he's, if you're not vibing with it, obviously let him know, or, leave if it sucks. But if you're like him and he's respectful and in integrity, let him lead, let him pick and choose, let him, take you on the date and actually be led on the date, and let him pay, let him, make the first move in escalating. And that's an art form, right? And so that's the most basic advice I can give, which is actually the advice everyone kind of gives. The difference is, once you've had that conversation about what you're available for, what the expectations are, and what kind of relationship you actually want.
And it's so interesting because sometimes we don't even know what we want, right? Sometimes
Sure.
we are not even aware before we are in the situation with someone, and then we discover who we are through the relationships as well. And it's so interesting because I've been actually thinking recently, I'm going to share a little bit of my personal story over the last few days that is alive, very much alive within me right now. And I'm curious about your perspective on it, because I really like this one guy that is almost ticking all the boxes that I just wanted to manifest, right? So I just, I wrote down, of course, what my perfect partner is and so on. He's ticking so many things, but he's not interested in me because he's dating someone else. And of course, I had a lot of triggers around it. I had to go through processes. But then I had a ceremony where my mom was in her highest state of consciousness, and she saw my future man, and she was seeing how this man is on his knees in front of me. But then I'm just looking at the guy that I like now, and just kind of checking with him whether he's gonna do the step towards me. But he didn't. He was just smiling, and I turned to my man, let's say, and went into that. But also what my mom felt intuitively is that he's not this man that is kind of meant for me is not going to have all these boxes ticked off, right? So I'm kind of I've been in my mind going through this kind of perspective shifts where on one hand, I believe I can manifest anything I want and I can have my perfect ideal man. On the other hand, I'm big on letting go and actually letting the universe brings me what is meant for me. So I'm curious about your perspective in this case, because there is probably a lot of people who are, they have some kind of plan to have a specific person. For example, for me, I would really love to be with a musician because I'm a musician myself. And if we could connect through music with my partner, I would feel probably more fulfilled in my life. But what my mom felt is that the partner who is going to be close to me, he's probably not going to be a musician. I mean, this is all speculations, this is all intuition, and it can all shift in them. This was for here and now, right? For the ceremony here and now, it can all change, and I'm aware of that. But I'm just curious about the perspective that it brings, because on one hand, okay, you can have everything you want in your life. On the other hand, there is a bigger plan, the divine plan for how things are happening. So how do you navigate between meeting someone and vibing with someone and having, let's say, some kind of idea of who this person is supposed to be, versus opening up to what life brings you and to who is on your path and who actually might be even better for you, even though they don't tick off all the boxes. I'm curious about your perspective on how to navigate it, how to navigate between, because it's control and letting go, really, right? It's I want this and this and this and this and this, but I'm also open to, whatever life brings me. So how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, it's both ends. You describe both sides. You should definitely know what you want and have a bar set, have your desires clear. And, writing a letter or making a list to the beloved is very powerful. It works, but it may not be linear, right? It's not going to be just, meet that person. You might need to have other relationships first, You might need to have relationships that are teachers. Some relationships are there to teach you. You can call them karmic relationships. You can call them twin flames. There's all these kind of ideas about what that is. doesn't really matter what you call it. It's just the reality is you might not be ready for that type of relationship, or it may not be available. It might be down the timeline. It might not be where you are currently. So there is a level of surrender. And obviously, if you are open to, what's available, then you can't, lower your expectations or, settle. You still need to be moving in the direction of growth. But obviously, we're all, loving humans. Like, we're meant to love, we're meant to be in relationships. So you're just going to be drawn to what you're drawn to. And you have to trust that, trust your instinct. Now, before you get into the relationship, or once you're starting to get into it, dating, courtship, be clear. Again, if you're radically honest and clear, you'll save yourself those months, years of incompatible relationships, pain, drama, and trauma.
Yeah, and I vibe with that a lot. And I also feel like sometimes we don't really know how the relationship will evolve. So even though someone might not tick off all our boxes, at some point in further, right, when they develop and I develop and we change, we can be more and more compatible as we go, because we grow and we learn and we expand together. And also I feel like when we are in a relationship with someone, we balance each other out oftentimes. Like, more extroverted person will attract someone more introverted. And then, let's say I'm more extroverted. So someone will calm me down because I'm energetic and full of energy. And sometimes I forget to rest. Whereas I'm gonna energize someone who is more peaceful and calm, and this person will become maybe more extroverted. And so it's all about the dancing in these energies and growing together. So yeah, I had my process with it, because I was like, after the ceremony, I woke up offended at the universe. Like, why cannot I have everything I want? Why this person that I like so much cannot like me back? And why am I I'm gonna have to settle for someone who is not a musician? I had this like little fight within myself. But of course, it's just inner child stuff coming up for me. Like, why cannot I have a frying pan that I want? And even my mom was like laughing at me, because when I expressed it to her, she was like, yeah, you had this trauma when you were like 3 years old. I didn't want to buy a frying pan for you in the store, so how about we go to the shop and I'm gonna buy you a frying pan, so you don't cry that you don't get what you want. And it's funny, because I'm like almost 30 years old now, and something that is a trigger from when I was 3 is coming to the surface now. It's like, why the universe doesn't want to give me exactly what I want. But of course, in life, we don't always get what we want. And actually, it's great, because then we can grow and we can expand and we can accept. And sometimes we think from the mind that something is the best for us, but actually what our heart tells us is something else is even better, but we cannot see it because our mind is not designed to see what's going to happen. It's only designed to see what happened and what happens right now. So we just need to open ourselves up and trust our guidance, our soul, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, to just bring us where we need to be. So that's really, really amazing. And so what do you feel like are the most important tips maybe for a successful relationship? If we're already in a relationship with someone and we're past the dating phase and we know what we want and we're like, okay, yes, I'm going to be with this person, what would you say are just the most important things to remember when you're already with someone?
Yeah, when you're with someone, it's all about holding the polarity and the desire as sacred, right? And treating the relationship as like a garden or a third entity or container. So each partner is going to have to bring their overflow of energy to that. So it's really important to, as the man, be on your mission and purpose, fill yourself up with your, leadership and whatever that is for you. That needs to be primary for the man, for the masculine. He also is going to need, his brothers. He's going to need his physical training, discipline, his emotional attunement to the relationship itself, which means continuing to date, to lead, and to court her, which is a huge piece that gets missing when you're, 1, 2, 3 years, 20 years in, right? For the feminine, it's similar. You also need to fill yourself up with whatever your muse is, right? Your creatrixhood, whatever that is, what that is that you love. It might be different than the masculine though, because it may not be so much mission purpose, although a lot of women do have that nowadays. It could be more the social fabric. It could be the sisterhood. It could be, your creativity, your expression, whatever that looks like, that has to be there. She's also going to have to practice, being responsive, emotionally open, and surrendered to the moment and the pulse of the relationship. She's going to have a really strong sense of what the aliveness is in the moment of the actual relationship, whereas the masculine will more be concerned with where the relationship is headed, the vision and structure of it. So these are some of the subtle energetics that are going to play out. Another framework or set of frameworks I use with clients is, you need to understand attachment style. You need to understand love languages. It's good to understand erotic blueprints also. And it's also good to understand your communication style, because really all the relationship is communication. If sex isn't happening or there's no desire, there's probably a communication issue. If there's money issues, it's probably a communication issue. So the ideal is to get the needs, wants, and desires met of both partners to the best of your ability, while still giving space. So letting there be space and breathing room between you. So you're not just, going into that like super entangled mode, which for certain phases is sacred, but you're going to learn your rhythm basically.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And can you expand a little bit more on the communication styles?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be for masculine beings, for men, most men, communication style is going to be very much logos. It's going to be from the mind. So it's going to be, here's the vision. Are you coming with me? Or here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. Here's the problem I'm going to solve. Here's my leadership, my vision, my structure. Really powerful. He's like the riverbanks, right? The feminine, most women are going to be the river, right? The Shakti, the Eros. So it's much more in the body. It's much more in the moment. There's more emotion and attunement to just what's changing all the time and expressing it, not withholding love, not withholding emotion. And so she's the river, right? Filling those riverbanks and filling it with energy and sensation and emotion. And when that is really dialed in, those are the most magnetic, attractive, alive couples. And we've all seen that. And, obviously there's fluidity, but that's kind of the basic guidelines that are going to be successful in dating.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And that brings me actually to the question as well, because I see a few couples around me, let's say, that have this dynamic where when they met, let's say a few years ago, the woman was more masculine in her control and structure and so on. And the man was more feminine in terms of like, let's say he's an artist and he's a painter, for example, and he's way more in his creative flow and more like in the moment and so on. And she is more like, let's say a businesswoman with everything going on. And of course, the polarity brought them together. But actually, the dynamic is that it's kind of reversed. And so I'm curious to know how you see it in terms of, because how I'm feeling it is that if the woman doesn't become more feminine and the man more masculine, actually it's going to bring some resistance, because it's in the essence we are, let's say as women we are more feminine, and actually when we are in our masculine too much, it can bring a little bit of disharmony inside, because we're not meant to, let's say our essence is not that, but because we learned in childhood that this is going to bring us safety, when we control things, when we are more masculine, then this is how we behave. But actually how I see, and these people that I know, they want to work on it. They want to become, let's say, in reverse polarity, right? They want to reverse it so that the man is more masculine and the woman is more feminine. So what would be your piece of advice for these couples that maybe struggle with it because they have been in this pattern for years, let's say, in this example, right? And it is like a, let's say, regular way to go about life, when the woman is planning, the woman is organizing, and the man is more like flowing in the moment and more emotional. How to bring it back to how they really want to express themselves?
Yeah, I see this all the time. And this is probably the main clientele I work with. I call it polarity reversal or inversion. It happens a lot. Because society, unfortunately, a lot of societies, they support this idea of the strong, independent woman, and women don't need men and they can just do whatever. And like, yes to, women's rights and like women being, lifted up out of all the oppression that has been there historically. I'm a fuck yes for that. The problem becomes that those women then go out and attract or date men that are more in their flow, and they're not really finding their solidity, and those men think that's going to work for them too, which a lot of men have been lied to and then told that this is what masculinity is, like military, business, like corporate mindset, like you're a worker. And a lot of guys don't want that, especially younger guys today. A lot of them are very creative. They're very much like, myself included in the past. It's like, I don't live that lifestyle. So they're trying alternative lifestyles. It's like kind of a perfect storm between, anywhere from 20 to 40-year-olds right now. Now, that's all great until you get into a relationship. And then the woman wants to surrender the bedroom, but also just in the dating phase, she wants to be in her heart, she wants to be in her body, relaxed, open, sensitive, feminine. She can't if she's holding the masculine energy in the relationship, structure, plan, and the man has to fill that role and step into it. And so a lot of men, it's a rude awakening because maybe their mother was very masculine and kind of lorded over their father. Maybe they had a single mother. This is very common. A lot of men have just not had strong male role models and archetypes in their life. So this is a big, big issue that has to be addressed. Now, the good news is your instincts, your DNA, thousands of ancestors and generations before you got shit done, right? They were hunters or warriors, or they were gatherers or, whatever, mothers and fathers. They lived and died because the men and women worked together and they're good at different things. They have different roles and specialties, and that's sacred. Like, I don't think this whole idea that, men and women are completely the same, none of the gender differences matter. This is not healthy. Doesn't make sense. This is against nature. And, non-binary people and, transgendered people, I've worked with them. They still have masculine and feminine energy. In a same-sex couple, there's still a masculine energy. And think about it as yin and yang, solar and lunar. You can choose your terminology. People get really caught up with this today. I mean, I don't know what it's like there in Europe, but in America, this is a huge topic, and there's all this cancellation and woke mob mentality around this. But the fact is, somebody's got to hold the masculine. Somebody's got to hold the container and lead it. Someone has to fill the container with energy and be led. They're both positions of power. That's what people forget. A lot of people think, including a lot of women who've defaulted in the masculine, maybe because their career, maybe because they, are resisting, being a stereotype, which fair enough. I support it. The problem is that you're not thriving in that energy. And you can just see it. You can see it. You can see it in people's hormonal and nutrition and physical systems, their stress levels, their sexuality, their ability to feel pleasure, their ability to, have a high quality mate, and then ideally have children, which is what the majority of people I talk to actually desire. And so trust your instincts is what this comes back to.
Yeah, and I can relate to that really, because in my previous relationship, I could be completely in my feminine flow, and he was the provider, and he was just, we were traveling the world, he was providing everything, and I could just focus on my business, but really in a feminine way where I could just, dance on the beach and then maybe do a session here and there, but I was just safe, and I was just blossoming really as a woman, and I was supporting him. I was able to support him more on his journey, and then he was able to earn even more money for both of us, and it was just such a beautiful energy and such a beautiful harmony. And now that I'm single, I need to step up more into my masculine as well, because I need to provide for myself and have both of the polarities. And I feel like for me it's actually a journey now to not be so controlling and not be so stressed in my masculine, because from my childhood I associate masculine with a lot of like control and stress and nerves and so on. And so I feel like it was easy in a relationship where I had the masculine energy outside of me to contain me, to be in my feminine flow and to blossom. And I feel like that's healthy. And it's not to say that I need someone to be there for me. I also can work with this polarity inside of me so that I feel safe with my masculine and my feminine inside. But I can really feel what you're talking about here, that when there is harmony and when the man comes with the masculine energy, the woman can then really blossom in her creativity and in her support and love and these qualities that we as women are supposed to bring here, empathy and just all these feminine qualities really. And I feel like that also helps men to feel more embraced, let's say, and feel more supported as a man. But there's a lot of let's say, different ideas in the society. Like, as you said, women can, go for career, and they are not supposed to be only mothers and take care of children, and they can, go for the goals and so on. But actually, what I find within myself, at least, that's my truth, is that biologically we are meant to live like this, where women are more like guards of, the home energy, and like the love and the emotions and the creativity, whereas men are providers, basically. And I feel like it's ingrained in our psyche to be like that. And if it's not that, then it's just, to me, it seems just unhealthy. Although it sometimes works for some time, but it just feels like it's not the right way to go. Although I can see the couples that are, functioning like that, but at the end of the day, I don't really feel like they are so happy, to be honest. If they are not if they are in this reversed polarity, as you called it, it's just not as natural. And when we go with the natural flow of life, that's where we are more, I don't know, flowy, more supported, even as a man. And also, I feel like it's interesting. The other day, my friend shared with me that he did ayahuasca, and I asked him about his biggest insight. And what he said is that when he was really scared of letting himself be feminine, because he wanted to be a man and he wanted to be empowered in his masculinity. But when he actually allowed himself to grow in his feminine energy, then his masculine energy also had to grow even more to contain the feminine energy inside of him. So actually, by allowing himself to be more feminine, he also allowed himself to be even more masculine, because then the container grew together with the feminine energy, which is pretty interesting, right? Because we are sometimes scared that if we let the other side of us that we don't really want to, let into ourselves, if we let it grow, if we accept it, then the other side of us is also getting more harmonious and balanced. So what do you think about that? Do you feel like it's true generally, or do you feel like it was the experience of my friend only? Because I personally resonate with it a lot. Like, when we're just allowing the wholeness of us to fill ourselves, then we become just more fulfilled and whole within.
Totally. I mean, I think that's definitely true for your friend. And I think for a lot of men at some point in their journey, they need to explore the feminine or the yin essence. Certainly ayahuasca, who is the grandmother of that medicine, which is so beautiful, will help you do that, because she's she's literally the earth. The issue, I think, there, because I fell into this and I've supported a lot of men, is like too much of that. You can just open and just go deep into that. But if you're not also training the masculine, then it's not going to be able to contain it. And you see this, you mentioned some of the types, the artists, the musicians, incredible creativity and beauty, but often their finances are not sound. They may not be great leaders. They may not be able to, lead a woman and date them successfully and claim them. They might be very transient with that energy, which is a phase. It's beautiful in your 20s, like go for it, explore. At some point though, you're going to have to train the masculine side and bring online that, provider, protector.
And how do you train the masculine side? What are the best ways to do it?
Yeah, I mean, the number one way to train your body, I think all men should have a physical practice. So, for me, it was sports, and then yoga, and then weightlifting, and then, all these different practices, martial arts, find something and just do it. That's huge. Brotherhood is the next one. So having a circle of men that you trust, that are in integrity, that are not just, the lads or the mates, and you're not just bullshitting. You're actually speaking truth to each other. You're training together. You're masterminding together. You're talking about business, talking about women, talking about, your mindset, and helping each other, supporting each other with challenge, with real energy. And then I'm for, older men that can help you along the way, mentors or leaders that you can look to, and they'll actually be able to be like, hey, like, here, this is a mistake you're making, or here, I can support you with this. Huge. And I also think, you don't have to, not everyone's an entrepreneur. Like, certainly entrepreneurship is not an easy path at all. But every man has his calling. So whether you're a carpenter, you're a gardener, you're a CEO, you're a single dad, whatever, go all in on your calling. Like, what it is you're here to do, that's your masculine edge. That's your gift to the world, and you have to give it. You have to train it. that's what's going to help you feel a fulfilled life as a man.
Beautiful. Yeah, because the man needs to have direction, right? That's a masculine energy. It's like, I have a goal, I have direction, and poof, I'm just going there. And if there is no direction, if it's just flow, then the masculine energy cannot be fully expressed. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like it's really helpful. And I also feel like even for a woman to move the body, but more in like a flowy way, to dance or to also have practices like, I don't know, singing or painting or things like that that can also awaken the feminine side. And for the men that are suppressing the femininity, because there is a lot of men, I guess, that from all these bullshit beliefs like men don't cry and so on. What would you say to these people that are very, very masculine, but then they are maybe ashamed of feeling their feelings, or maybe they don't fully accept their sensitivity and so on?
Yeah, this is, again, it's going to come to bear at some point where, your emotion, it's there, it's real. Men have emotion too, obviously. Suppressing it is not the way. It must be expressed. Now, that doesn't mean you get lost in it and just become a mess. I really like the Stoic mindset, which is like, feel the feeling fully. It's giving you a gift. It's giving you a lesson. Like be curious about yourself. This is where practices like meditation, connection with nature, various types of breath work, doing things that are hard, but also having space to feel, and if you feel safe crying with your partner, that is available. But I also think it's powerful to do that with men. It's also powerful to do that, again, with someone that's an elder. This is a real tragedy of society these days, is the loss of elders, older men, older women that are there to support and lift men and women up as they mature. And I think we're slowly coming back to that, which is like, our ancient way that, all people in all times have done this. And, the state, the corporation, these ideas and ideologies that are kind of running the show here in the 21st century, they leave this out. So a lot of people are just going to have to find their way back to village, find their way back to community.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And I have one last little question to you. What is the best way to contact you if someone really vibes with your energy and would like to learn more? Maybe they need a relationship mentor. What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, you can go to mind.com, Kevin Orosz, OROSZ.com. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm in all the places. So you can, I make a lot of videos. I have a podcast. I have a ton of YouTube videos and trainings on my site. I also have a free community called the Polarity Dojo, which is all about this. It's a private Facebook tribe where, we're constantly sharing, tips and topics about how to embody masculine, feminine energy, sexuality, dating, relationship, courtship. And that's an amazing place to start if you're interested in this stuff. And we are often offering masterclasses. We have one coming up next week that is very affordable. It's like 10 euros to be in a 2-hour experience where we demonstrate this, go deep and workshop it. And there's also, one-on-one coaching available, and we do group coaching experiences as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much. I really feel like I got a lot out of this conversation. I'm sure that all our listeners as well. So I'm sending you massive love and gratitude for this call. It's been really amazing to talk to you.
Thanks so much, Karolina.